Broadcasting from the Unshackled Studios in Melbourne. This is WilmsFront, brought to you by theunshackled.net. Now here's Tim Wilms.
Hello and welcome to this week's WilmsFront. The date is Wednesday, the 5th of August, 2020. We are live on the WilmsFront YouTube and DLive channels. We are also live on Entropy, the YouTube and DLive enhanced software, where you can participate in our poll, ask questions and send through super chats. It is 7 p.m. here in internationally renowned Melbourne. We have been making world headlines because of our new draconian stage 4 coronavirus lockdown, with a curfew from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. under the new state of disaster declaration declared by Premier Dan Andrews Sunday evening. So Melburnians, you must all be home in less than 55 minutes time, unless you are an essential worker and you have your permit papers with you. Outside of curfew, you are only permitted within a 5-kilometre shopping and exercise radius from your primary place of residence, and 1 hour time limit applies. Only one person from your household is permitted to go shopping per day. Premier Dan and Police Commissioner Shane Patton have ratcheted up their threats against the people of Victoria to follow the rules, or else doubling down on this big stick strategy, which has failed so far to crush the coronavirus curve. The daily new case numbers continue to be in the hundreds, the new daily deaths continue to be in the teens, and the number of total active cases to continue to go up. It's surpassed 7,000 now. As of tomorrow, all retail shuts except for supermarkets, liquor stores, chemists, petrol stations, convenience stores, post offices, banks, bakers, butchers, greengrocers, and newsagents. Retailers can still do click and collect and online delivery. Fast food outlets and cafes can still sell takeaway, but only before 8 p.m. The penalties for those who have tested positive and breach isolation orders has been increased to $4,957. Individual fines for breaching the lockdown and curfew will remain at $1,652, and failing to wear a mask in public will remain a $200 fine. The powers granted to the Andrews government under the State of Disaster Declaration made under the Emergency Management Act 2013 are quite extraordinary. Police no longer need warrants for entry and searches. They can arrest and detain you without charge or legal recourse. And Emergency Services Minister Lisa Neville can appoint anyone she likes as an authorised officer under all these powers. Accountable government is also being delayed during the Stage 4 lockdown, with the State Legislative Assembly and the judicial inquiry into the Melbourne hotel quarantine breaches, which all the evidence points to the epidemiology that the current outbreak in Melbourne is linked to those breaches. Both of those functions of government have been delayed by 2 weeks because of Stage 4. However, the Legislative Council sat yesterday because the Andrews government doesn't have a majority there. Health Minister Jenny Mikakos, who sits in the upper house, she refused to answer any questions during the question time, just saying she'll answer them later. Last Friday night, Deputy Chief Health Officer Dr. Annalise Van Diemen, you remember her as the person who tweeted on a day off around about near at the end of April whether coronavirus was like the discovery of Australia by Captain James Cook. She's been quietly moved on, and this afternoon we have reports that Chief Health Officer Dr. Brett Sutton has quit, but the Premier's office has said he's on a few days leave. Incredible. Returning to the show tonight as our sole featured guest is Nick Patterson. Last time he appeared on WilmsFront, I introduced him as an MMA fighter, as he was in the news for continuing to operate his MMA training gym in Cranbourne back in April during the first Stage 3 lockdown, which is fair to say didn't work in containing the coronavirus. He was arrested during the Mother's Day anti-lockdown protest. Ever since the second lockdown began on July 9th, mainstream media have been targeting and doxing so-called virus deniers and anti-maskers. Nick is a member of Empowerment Solutions, which is a educational organisation which teaches people how to reclaim their inherent rights. Nick has also started his own blog at john8.net, named after the Bible passage John 8:32, "The truth shall set you free." As a small business owner, father, and Christian, the lockdowns have affected his livelihood and way of life the greatest amongst most people. Nick, thanks for coming back on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, mate. I really appreciate it.
Now, obviously, you've been aware of the mainstream media write-ups about you over the past 2 weeks. I think I alerted you to a couple of them. They seem to know a lot about you, these journalists at the Herald Sun or the Australian or the Daily Mail. Have they contacted you for comment?
No, they haven't contacted me. I did receive. No, I was contacted once by someone, a reporter from 7 News.
Was that the reporter who interviewed you the first time, Paul Dowsley?
No, it wasn't. It was another one. And they asked if I wanted to talk to them, and I said no. I just declined. I wasn't interested.
You're done with the mainstream media. And now you've been described as a member of a cult or a cult leader, a conspiracy theorist, a sovereign citizen, and people such as yourself engage in selfish and childish stunts with police officers at checkpoints, reading through a script about how to get past checkpoints. How would you describe yourself?
Well, I don't know where they came up with sovereign citizen. I mean, that's an oxymoron. Can't be a sovereign and a citizen at the same time. I don't know what a sovereign citizen really is. So that's just a term that they've come up with. Maybe there's some people that were at our events that are part of a group called Sovereign Citizens. I don't know. As far as being a cult, well, that's just defamation and they're slandering me. They don't like people going against the narrative and proving the narrative wrong. They don't want people that are armed with truth and that are applying it when it goes against their narrative. So what we've been doing is organising people together where we to my gym, and we run it like a gym class where I will have people, like I say, it's a boxing class. You would have one person holding pads, another person hitting the pads, or two people sparring. What we do is we give a script to half of the people that are there, they're present, and it has several scenarios on there, and then would have the other person would be the defendant and would switch roles and would change scenarios. So it was just a way of people learning how to apply their rights, because there's certain inherent rights that we have. You're not obliged to speak to police unless you're driving, so you don't have to actually speak to police. And we just explained that there's high court cases for that. DPP versus Hamilton. You're under no obligation to speak to police unless you're already under arrest. So so we just teach people simple ways to be able to protect their right to travel, right to do the things that they want to do. And what's obviously they came to into my space to try and shut my business down. They've also shut down a number of churches where that I'm involved with, which has caused me to be a little bit more active on the front. And that's how I guess I've become sort of known in the community is somebody that has stood up, but has also then given a lot of effort and time to try and help other people to know what the actual law is. Because the sad state of affairs is that we've got police going around with guns enforcing draconian rules that when they don't actually have authority to do a lot of the things that they're doing.
Well, they do now under the state of disaster.
Yeah, but prior to that, I mean, where did did the people ever give permission and power to the government to shut down everybody's livelihood or a whole lot of people's livelihoods?
Well, it's now we're going to get into this later. It's under already passed legislation, which obviously people should have been paying more attention, scrutinising it more when it was passed. The Health and Wellbeing Act of 2008. That was the initial one that allowed the Premier to declare a state of emergency. The state of disaster is under the Emergency Management Act 2013, which replaced the Emergency Management Act of 1986. So these laws have been passed. They've been on the books for a number of years. I haven't dug up the sort of vote tallies, but you can probably assume that it was bipartisan. So they've been sitting there, and now they've been utilised to their fullest extent.
I guess you've got to wonder why they've created these. They seem to have a bit of a timeline where they create this legislation prior to them using and abusing it. You know, they seem to just appoint themselves extra powers. You know, well, there's a constitution, but they don't really care about the constitution. They only regard it when it's in their favour. When it's not, they will just disregard it.
Well, you have to remember our Australian constitution. It basically goes through the separation of powers, which powers the state and federal governments have. That's it. We don't have a Bill of Rights like the United States. Even now, it's called implied freedom of political communication. That's not in the Constitution. That was invented by the High Court when they interpreted responsible and representative government.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I agree with you. I guess I look at it a little bit different because I look at it like we shouldn't need our rights to be written down to know that we have rights. I think everybody knows deep down that you have a right to sustain yourself in your life. You have the right to breathe freely and enjoy your life. And I don't think it needs to be written down somewhere. I mean,
I'm just explaining how they're able to do all this. That's
yeah. I'm with you.
They certainly, obviously, they publicised that script for getting through checkpoints, but how they really demonised people such as yourself was through there were two Bunnings Karens, as they're referred to, and they both had blonde hair, so it was easy to get them mixed up, both middle-aged, and there was one of them who filmed herself abusing the Bunnings staff and quoting the 1948 Human Rights Declaration, which, if she is, say, a sovereign citizen, why is she quoting a globalist document? To my own point of view, is international law is not worth the paper it's written on. The sovereignty that I believe is the sovereignty of nations. So these international human rights laws, charters, courts, treaties, they have no legal standing. And of course, she was abusing those staff at Bunnings who just trying to earn some money while everyone else's businesses is getting shut and their jobs going. Did you know either of these two Bunnings Karens?
Never met them before. No one I know knows them either. And I know lots and lots of people that are connected in different groups to people that are sort of on the other side of the of the government agenda. The people that are very anti what's going on at the moment. With different groups. The 99% group, all these other groups, and I've asked them. I said, look, do you know who Karen is? Does anyone know this Karen? No one knows. I didn't know there were two Karens, actually, so I didn't know that.
It was,
I don't watch the TV.
The one who was on the Today Show was not the Karen who quoted the human rights Declaration of Human Rights, the 1948 United Nations one. It was the other one.
Yeah, I think the only reason you would mention those treaties and would be because the directives are coming from the UN that they're applying. So there's a directive from the UN, and then the chief health officer makes another directive based on that, the UN directive. So you'd go, well, hang on, it's coming. This is the source of power. Obviously, this is where it's coming from, and I think that would be the reasoning for quoting something like the International Declaration of Human Rights or the ICCPR. covenant on civil and political rights. But I'm with you. I don't know who she is. A lot of people think she's an actor, or I don't know about both of them. They've said Karen's an actor in different groups. Maybe she is. Maybe she's controlled opposition. I don't know. I don't know her.
Well, the reason they chose Bunnings was because, Bunnings is going to be closed tomorrow, except for, I think, accredited tradies. And what is it? We've got the, permitted worker scheme now, which is the what I referred to in my introduction, the papers, please. So the Karens can't go into Bunnings, but they had the strictest no mask, no entry policy, as opposed to all of the other retailers, which I basically referred to as a policy which was going to guarantee confrontation. I saw you do a Facebook Live when you were in Woolworths, Unmasked. You were able to do your shopping, no issues.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I did that video was because I went earlier in the day. I went to a different Woolworths, and they told me I needed to wear a mask, and I said, "Oh, no, thanks." So I just kept walking, and then the manager came out, and he was all shaky and nervous, and was really quite aggressive with me. And I said to him, I said, "Look, what's the reason for me having to wear a mask here?" And I asked him that question so I could get to the heart of the issue. And he said it's because it's the new law. So then I had a discussion with him about the new law, and I said, "Well, there's no override declaration," and I went in that direction with. And he said, "Well, you know what? I don't care. We're not going to serve you." And I said, "Well, I've asked you to provide the evidence that there's a sort of an override to the Human Rights Charter, or an evidence that the Human Rights Charter is no longer valid."
You're talking about the Victorian one, Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities, which now has basically been suspended under this state of disaster.
Yeah, and so I said, if that's the case, then if you can provide evidence of it, then I'm happy to go along with you. And he said, "Oh, we don't care. We're just not going to serve you." And he said, "Look, we can. We have the right to refuse whoever we like."
They do.
And I agree. Yeah, you do. But you told me that the reason was because it was the law. And now I've questioned that. So I said, so now, and then you said, "Well, no, we're not going to answer that. I'm just going to refuse you." So I said, "Well, that's now it's not really about the law. It's about something else. And it borders on discrimination." So anyway, I went in, I did my shopping. I went through the self-checkout. That didn't bother me. Then I went to another supermarket. I thought, let's see if it happens again. So I put my recording on, and I haven't been bothered again. That was the only time I was ever bothered. And I go to the shop all the time to Woolworths. So I haven't been to Coles because, I don't know. I got the Afghan shop up the road. I go there a bit now because they don't ask any questions.
Afghan shop?
Yeah, there's a big Afghan supermarket up the road. So I go there and spend my money. I never used to, but now that, they don't give me any headaches about not wearing a mask. So, and they're next door to Coles. So they're getting on my business now.
Oh, that's quite interesting. I didn't know that Cranbourne had one. I assume since you're shopping there, they must have some good food.
That's not bad. Yeah.
Oh, well, certainly now more than ever, if it's important to support small businesses.
Well, I think so because the small businesses are the ones that are getting given the hardest. They're getting all these different. Basically, they'll be given another job to do. So a friend of mine's got a friend that owns a small franchise that do cakes and coffees and all the rest of it. And they've been told that all the casual workers that they have to fill out all of these forms, and they're big documents to fill out.
Yeah, I've had a look at them. It has you actually have to write down what shifts you work. It's a huge double-sided A4 document.
Yeah, exactly. So they're going to do this for all their workers for every single shift. Now, are they getting paid to do that extra work? So the government's just said, "Here, there's a whole lot of extra work. You have to do it. It's coming from the government, but we're not going to pay you to do that extra work." That's not right. That's black and white. That's wrong. But they're doing it, and if they're not, it seems to be the big companies that are exempt from it. It doesn't seem to affect them.
Well, they've already got existing compliance departments, and so they can easily sort it all out within a day or so.
And this is what they've done. They're wearing out the people. And a lot of people, I've got a friend whose his cousin lost his restaurant, closed it down. I've got another friend that said if my business closes, I'll commit suicide. You know, he said it to me. Now I don't know if he really means that, but
he's still like alive at the moment.
His business is still operational.
Okay, so yeah, is okay. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, it's still operational, but he said that to me on the phone. He said, Nick, I don't know what I'll do if I lose my business. It means a lot to him. So they're hurting people. Who are these? Who are they to hurt people in such a way and think that they have the moral high ground to do that?
And not one journalist at Dan Andrews' press conferences is asked about that. Not that I've seen.
Not allowed to, because that would shift the narrative.
Doesn't mean it's not happening though.
No, exactly. No, that's right.
Yeah. And obviously, going forward with the media targeting of people such as yourself, Thanos and Raphael, they were basically. It was the Australian. They were accusing Rafael Fernandez of selling crystals to protect yourself from the coronavirus and 5G, and implying that he's some con man scam artist.
Yeah, I heard about that when I was did that live with them. I didn't even know about that. So they've got to demonize us. Demonize anybody that's a dissident. Make them to be the bad guys. It's the upside down world, Tim, where everything's upside down. What's good is bad, and what's bad is good. And if you have a different opinion, you're bad because you have to agree. That's compliance.
And probably the most vicious and I would say biggest pile-on shaming of a anti-lockdown activist, and in the end doxing as well, was Eve Black, whose clip of her going through one of the checkpoints, utilizing that script about have I committed a crime, am I disturbing a peace, she was waved on, and then she crossed herself and basically swore in joy. So she that clip went viral. She was viciously attacked on social media. I'm sure everyone's seen the clip. I'll remind you about what she looks like here. Then it broke that last Wednesday, she was pulled up at a checkpoint in Carlton. She tried the script again, and so police smashed her window to arrest her. And then the Herald Sun on Friday, and I even feel just dirty showing this, it's thankfully blurred. This is an SBS The Feed article, which they quite rightly make the point that this is slut shaming, as they talked about her a career as a exotic dancer and stripper, which, I mean, you can, like, it's fair enough if you oppose what she did, like going through the checkpoint and non-complying and that, but what's that got to do with what she did at the checkpoint? That's just basically tabloid trash at its worst.
Well, it just shows that they don't like what she did. And obviously, it's a lot of people saw that video and they thought, oh, that's interesting. Now that wasn't my script. That was she got that from somewhere else. But she told me on the Saturday that she wanted to stand up for her rights, and she knows that what's happening is wrong, and she wanted to stand up, and she had a go. And what I love about that video is because it's very much like a fight. Like, I was a professional fighter. You go out, you're all nervous at the beginning before you go out and fight. Then you have your interaction, your battle, and then after, if you win, you're so full of adrenaline. But it's like this adrenaline dump that you get from all the joy that you get after a win. And I saw all of that in that video. So it was very human. Video, you could see all of those emotions in there. And I think that's why it resonated with a lot of people. and it did go viral. And so what do the media do? They don't ask questions whether it was right or wrong. They just shame people and they demonize people. And anyone that has eyes to see knows that what they're doing is wrong. They're deceiving people. The mainstream media lie about just about everything. They're always lying about things. And we'll talk about that obviously later, because we're going to have a chat about some of the false narrative that they're creating. But to do that to someone is bad taste. It shows dishonor. Bring up things a bit more sparse. It's against the values of this country anyway to go and do that. And anyway, I mean, you know what? I think it exposes what they are. They're not about the truth, and they're not about what's right and wrong. Yet they'll say things, like on the media, they'll say, she shouldn't have done that. It's disgraceful. They'll put it down like that. But then the mainstream media will bring out all of this. This dirty laundry from someone.
I mean, it is true what they published, but is it newsworthy? That is the question.
Well, if you're putting out some truth, right? Look, definitely that. But if you're putting out truth and you're creating a massive bias, or you're using, I mean, sometimes the mainstream media would put things in that, like, the time and the place is accurate, but everything else is made up. They make. I mean, look. They've called Eve and myself and a number of other Thanos and Raph and James Bartolo. They've called all of us the ringleaders of the Antimask cult. The ringleaders. Now, we don't even all know each other, and now I know all of them now because I only met Raphael and the other day. I'd met Thanos once before, but this is what they do. So they've got to. So that's false. That's a false. That tells the cult's false because we're not connected. Directly.
Well,
and then
the Daily Mail, they did an extensive article on all the people they'd come across online, and there was heaps of people that I'd never come across as well. So clearly this so-called cult, it's very decentralized and organic.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I mean, I don't know. They said that I'm in the cult. I don't know if the cult exists. It might be in a cult, but I'm not a part of it. I haven't been to any meetings, so I don't know. But this is the sort of thing that they do, and I hope that more are going to recognise it in the future, and that because we've tried to get it out there. We did a rebuttal article to an article that came out regarding my gym, like only hours after there was an incident. And
oh yes, we're going to get into that. Let's go on to that now, where because when it was start of last week when the Daily Mail started publicising that your meetings were at your gym every Saturday at 6 p.m. and the implication was that the media was egging the police to basically bust it up, like it was some sort of a pill processing facility or something. And so they turned up there with about, you publicised that the meeting was taking place 6 p.m. Saturday. They turned up with about 15 police cars. The media said that they busted up this anti-mask meeting. Is that true?
Yep, that's what they said. Yep.
Yeah, but is it true that that's what they reported on? Like, did that actually happen?
Well, there was no anti-mask meeting. The gym was closed. We were on a Zoom call with about 40 of us watching the events unfold from my cameras. So I've got my cameras, my CCTV, I'm streaming that, and we're all watching. So it was complete. That's the article that we wrote.
Yeah, on your john8.net website.
Yeah. There was a better article that came out. So that's a rebuttal to a specific article. There was a better article that came out the next day. And it was.
This is the fake news.com.au article. They're becoming news.com.au one of the worst, especially when it comes to fear about further restrictions and that. They're just awful. So
and I think what they're doing with it all is to make people full of fear and believe that their power is justified, and to change our perceptions that we consider it to be okay or normal or the right thing to do. You know, I think in our conscience, we know that it's not right. But then if we get bombarded with articles like this, we think, oh, you know what? Yeah, they've done the wrong thing. And actually, it was all a big lie anyway. There was no meeting. There was no meeting. Now, I did post it on social media that we were going to have a meeting, but I had a feeling inside there was no way for me to know that they were going to turn up. But I just had a feeling inside. Sometimes you just got to trust your gut. So I did. I went, you know what? All of my inner group, I added them to a private chat. I let them know, look, we're not going to be running the event. We're going to do a Zoom. And then for everybody else that was possibly going to come down to this event, to our anti-mask meeting, which isn't even an anti-mask meeting, it's just a rights meeting. I basically said, look, anyone that wants to come to our meeting, you need to be cleared by our group, and we need to add you to our other group. And if you don't get clear, then don't come. It was a way of making a filter to people that we weren't sure about, that possibly were actors or Karens, weren't able to. They weren't going to. We didn't want people turning up if the police were there and being arrested. That's what we didn't want. So anyway, we had a Zoom call, and we were watching the police turn up, set up roadblocks, 15 police cars and a police van, and that was a number of my friends.
Were they, because I've been to in the past a lot of demonstrations where because there's often counter protests, they have what's called the public order response vehicles. Were they normal police vehicles, or were they public order response?
There were different types of vehicles. Most of them were your standard vehicles, police cars and DV vans. But there were some other ones that were different, and one of them was one of those big vans. Yeah. Was
the big van, was it dark or white?
It was a dark one, I think.
Okay. Yeah, the public order response vehicles, they're dark, so
there were some dark vehicles as well. There were some, yeah.
To my way of thinking, that if they are serious about containing the coronavirus, they could have spent those 3 hours worth of resources maybe doing compliance checks on those who've tested positive to see that they're at home, the actual people with the virus, because as far as you know, have you infected anybody with the virus?
I don't know if the virus exists. Maybe it does. Haven't seen any evidence of it though. And what I see on the media, I can't trust because they're proven to be untrustworthy.
They did manage to arrest, but later release one woman here. So the media got their money shot there.
Yeah, I don't know her. I have never met her. I don't know who she is. But I don't think she's a Karen though. I actually think she probably was someone.
Yeah, she didn't look like a Karen. She wasn't being, as the term goes, hysterical. She was just she looked distressed.
Yeah. So they set up camp at about 4:30, and they were there till about 9:30. So about 5 hours they were there. Police. So 15 police cars. The media was there. The media got there not long after the police were setting up.
Because they're an essential service. They still are under stage 4. So if you, and I don't recommend this, watch the 6 p.m. news. They've got all their correspondence out. They've probably got all their special papers there. So yeah, fake news is still an essential service.
And yeah, and the best part was when the nothing had obviously happened, and they weren't able to get what they wanted because we weren't there. There was no meeting. So 2 police cars reversed into the driveway of the gym. Obviously, the gates are shut; they're locked. They reversed to as far as they could, and they put their flashing lights on and left the flashing lights on for about 40 minutes at the front of my gym until about nearly 9:30. And the only reason for that would be to make it appear to everybody around that there's a crime scene, to make it look like, and maybe to cause the residents to make them not trust me or to think that I am a criminal. I don't know, but this was done. There was no other reason why you would have 2 police cars right at the front. They deliberately go out of their way to park their cars right out the front of my gym. They weren't parked there before, and they just left the lights on. They're flashing lights. Why would they do that?
And what has been the reaction or non-reaction because as I mentioned, this all started back in April during the first lockdown. Have you copped any local hate or anything like that? Because you sort of are a mini celebrity now.
Well, yeah, I have got a bit of hate. I get a lot more love though. A lot of people. I probably get about 200 to 300 messages a day now, which is a lot of work to reach out because I like to talk to everybody, but I'm not able to do that anymore. But it's very, very rarely I get any hate now. But I do get some. I was getting it on my business page. I had to shut that down because I was getting.
Do they say they hope you die?
Yep. Yeah, I got hate
so
to die.
That's their. We've closed everything down to save lives, but they want certain people to die. How does that make sense? How is that care and compassion?
Oh yeah, I've had a number of them say, "I hope your kids get COVID-19 and die." Then you'll, stuff.
That's
like
even worse.
It's so much worse. And even though I know it's probably just a bunch of trolls, it still affects you because it's just darkness that they're spewing at you. They're spewing venom at you.
Yeah, there's people like that.
So I just went, you know what? Get rid of the Facebook page. It's not worth it. I had people saying that there's, that it's infested. My gym's infested with rats. All sorts of things like that. It's so, okay, it's another one of those. But look, truly, there's been I think there's a lot of people like us that know that what's happening is wrong, and they're happy to support people that are standing up. I know people. I've got friends that have said, "Look, mate, whatever you need, we will support you 100% because we know what you're doing is right." And not everything I do is going to be right. Not anything I do, the other people are going to do is right. But if we're all doing our best to do what's right, and we're all kind of working together, that's going to be hard for the government to control. And I think that people are coming together and starting to share information with each other and help each other out. Like you're helping me, and I'm here trying to share my story, and I'm trying to get the truth out on my medium that I can, and then others are doing the same thing, panels. And if we're all working together and pushing against the narrative, eventually there's going to be a critical mass of people, and they don't want a critical mass of people to deal with because they're probably trying very hard just to hang on to the police officers they've got and get them to go along with their directions from their command. And there's been a huge, turnover of police. A lot of police are leaving. They don't want to be doing that job anymore because of what's happening.
We've got a super chat on Entropy from the Versace Cowboy for $3 Australian. He says, 2-part question, is Nick a proud Western chauvinist who refuses to apologise for creating the modern world? And will Nick be interested in joining the Proud Boys?
Okay. Well, I reckon the Proud Boys, they're doing some good work. I'm definitely not, I'm not, I would be considered a bit of a chauvinistic, I guess I would be, but it's hard to know where the line is for the definitions because the definitions keep changing. Yeah.
Somebody told me that you don't drink alcohol, which obviously the Proud Boys do drink a lot of alcohol.
Yeah, I don't drink. I don't drink at all. So, yeah. I could be the driver.
Just having some lime sodas.
Yeah, I'll be that guy. Yeah.
Everyone does always need one of those, and you'd obviously do it happily.
Yeah, no, that's it. As long as there are not too belligerent in the car, then no worries. And as long as they clean up any mess they make, not a problem.
Oh, there you go, Versace Cowboy. All right, now let's go back to talking about it, because it was clear that the media were tipped off that this bust was going to happen, which didn't happen in the end. There's what is termed the political media complex, which what we're seeing during this coronavirus is the mainstream media assisting with the government messaging. We have, obviously, the state opposition Liberal Party. They're only willing to go so far to attack the Andrews government. There are some very good Liberal MPs state who are giving it to the Andrews government, such as Bernie Finn, MLC. He's the one who originally coined the phrase Dictator Dan, and Tim Smith, who he came up with the friendless loser phrase as well. So there are a few firebrands there, but they certainly haven't really gone hard against, well, even the stage 3 lockdowns when they came in. And I've already mentioned that mainstream media, they're still deemed an essential industry. They're already releasing fear articles about a possible stage 5. We're not going to talk about that because it's not healthy for any of us to basically think up that. The golden rule is don't give government ideas. Now, I remember during the first lockdown, there was a lot of I don't even know who started this this trend where people were reading through their rights on a script and smashing their TVs, which seemed a bit silly to just wreck a TV by then. But I actually think smashing your TV now is actually good for your mental health. Watching alternative media. Not just myself, but other people. I found watching XYZ live on Monday night with Maddie Rose and Dave Hiscock, that cheered me way much than watching the 6 o'clock news or even Sky News for that matter. Because I find that just listening to and also speaking with like-minded people, it does help your state of mind during what is a pretty dark time.
That's what the word church actually means. It means whenever 2 or more are gathered and they're discussing truth and they edify each other. It just means the word community. That's the original etymology of that word. It's just been changed over time. So there is something special about people gathering together and talking about something when you're like-minded. You know, if people are talking politically about what's happening and they're coming up with solutions, they're talking about those solutions, it's edifying. And then when you start to put it into action, it's edifying. There's something beautiful about that. Obviously, with these restrictions, people aren't allowed to do that. They want to stop people doing that. We've been trying to do that at our gym, you know, and I know how the Liberal Party works because I was involved with the Liberal Party as a delegate for 4 years in a row until I got basically I got thrown out of the state council for running a policy motion to open up child abuse cases that implicated politicians, and then they got security to get me out. So that was that was the end of my political career in the Liberal Party. But definitely the people coming together is really important for people's mental health. It's very important to share ideas with people. It's not the same. You get some out of something out of being on other media devices. When you're one-on-one with people having a discussion, there definitely it's a different feeling, and it does edify people. I thrive on that. That's where I get the most joy. I've even discussed opening up my gym as a church, and because there's the religious exemption, a very strong exemption against what's happening. And I think it's an easier argument to win. But even my son today, he used my oldest son. I've got 4 little ones, and my oldest son said, "Oh, Dad, when are we going to start doing training again?" Because I stopped all the kids' classes as a result of all the police harassment in the area. So my son never liked really doing the MMA training, but now because he doesn't get to do it, he's like, I miss it. miss it, Dad. I want to do that. He thrives on it, but he doesn't realise until it's taken away.
Yeah, and I've sort of been the same during this lockdown as well, because I normally didn't go out much. Most of the time, I chain myself to this studio desk. But when the pubs were allowed to be open, you're allowed to visit friends. I took that opportunity. Because I realized during that time in basic house arrest that you need to live more. And I'm lucky that I'm still young. I'm 30. I can learn from this and appreciate these things going forward and be a bit more adventurous, because I haven't done hardly any overseas travel either. So it's sort of been a wake-up call in that regard.
Yeah. No, I like my son's been asked. Well, even recently, I said to my wife, "Oh, we should go away and get away." But it's like, when do you get away? There's nowhere to get away to. They've locked it all down. And look, I don't know where it's going to go, and how. I think it's all a matter of the people deciding when it stops. I think if the people just became, or
the government just concedes that they were wrong with this approach and change course. But that is a very rare government that will do that.
Well, and look, let's give them the opportunity. Maybe we should send them some notices saying, look, we give you a demand that give them 3 demand letters and ask them to acknowledge that they're wrong. And if they repent, we'll forgive them. And if they don't, it's the curse is on them.
That is very Christian of you.
Well, we try. Sometimes it's hard to be, though. Yeah, but the police have been driving up and down the street where my gym is, asking all of the residents and the business owners about me. I've had a lot of phone calls from people that are in the area saying, Nick, the police have been asking this, they're after you. I've even had the police, because I was still running my gym until Saturday. I actually had the police parking at the front of my gym, not parking, but just stopping at the front. The road.
Do you reckon they also have unmarked vehicles as well, just in the street?
Yeah, there's some that we've got our eye on. But when they would stop at the front of our gym and people, the only reason that they would do that is because they won't come onto the property, because with the no trespassing case law precedents that we've put up, and
they can come in now under stage 4.
Yeah, I know they would. I know they would. But anyway, but this is before the stage 4, right? So, but what they would do is, because they wouldn't come in, and the gate would be open, they wouldn't come in. They would just hang out the front, and it's like they were doing it so that no one would come into my gym to scare people off. It's like, we couldn't beat you, so what we're going to do is we're going to wreck your business. Now, there's no other reason for it. It's just stopping at the front to stop people coming into the gym. And that was a tactic used the week prior to the incident that happened just last Saturday.
And you were also arrested today, which you live streamed at Cranbourne train station with your son, because you were unmasked. That is what I refer to people such as yourself, the unmasks. I don't use that term, anti-masker.
Well, obviously, it's my religious belief, isn't it? Because I'm the leader of the anti-mask cult. So I've got to lead by example. But yeah, basically, I just said, look, I've got an exemption, and my exemption is that it's against my belief and conscience to wear it, and it's not good for my health. And who's accepting the liability? No one's accepting the liability. They're making you accept the liability for anything that happens. So I just sort of said, look, and they said, well, you need to tell us, why? I said, well, it's of a private nature. I don't want to disclose that with you. And then and it was funny because one of the officers, they were PSO officers, and I was filming, and I put the camera up close to their name because I wanted to find out. I wanted to be able to identify them.
Which they legally have to identify themselves. They have their
and I went
badge.
a little, and I went a little bit too close to one of them, and he said, "Oh, whoa, back up, social distance." And it's hard to take people seriously when they do that. But then moments later, they went and grabbed me, and put me under arrest. And you know what I mean? Like, it's like, is there any thinking or reasoning in there? No, there isn't any thinking or reasoning. They've been occupied. They're the occupiers that are someone's occupying their brain, the space between their ears, because there's nothing logical about what they're doing.
Well, they're just reacting to how they think they should react in their position, like that Woolworths store manager that you encountered. They just don't want trouble. That's sort of how they're operating at the moment.
Yeah, and it's like, well, I'm happy to have a chat with them, but it's gotten to the point. I think the media has done this. They've created this.
Oh yeah, they've been even worse with this second lockdown.
I think they've demonized the word unlawful. For those that don't know, that there is a difference between legal and lawful. And unlawful is basically something that's morally wrong in law, right? It's wrong. It's against your, it's like deprivation of liberty and things like that. That are, anything that takes away from your inherent rights, and that would be construed as unlawful. But legal, anything can be illegal or illegal. I mean, they can write something. They can write any legislation. They can write, all the blue-eyed babies have to be killed. They could write that into legislation. But does it make it lawful legislation? No, it doesn't. So, but they've demonized that word in the media. So now if you say, well, that's actually unlawful, they just roll their eyes at you. If you say, there's certain terms that you can't use now. If you say human rights, human rights.
Yeah, we saw Daniel Andrews in that unguarded moment, which he called frustration. If I hear one more use of the term human rights, seriously, it's about human life.
Right, yeah. So that has an impact on people. A lot of people go, but the rights is the one most important thing in my opinion. Because, and I always use the example, if you say you like cars, you've got a whole collection of cars, but you don't have the right to drive them, what's the point in having them, right? The rights are everything. When you take away a little bit of a right or part of a right, it ends up being humongous and monumental in how they can use that and twist it. So what they're doing is they're taking away things and they're setting up a precedent to be able to take it away again. We know that there's no massive danger to people. So they're quarantining all the healthy people. Why are they quarantining the healthy people?
Which I think is the most outrageous aspect of these lockdowns. Like, fair enough, quarantine the people who have the virus, because that is the thing that we're trying to contain, and also the vulnerable people as well, which, well, they failed to quarantine the vulnerable people. There's more aged care outbreaks. Even today, there was one in Bayside, which is around in, I think, Hyatt. So, and this is the thing. It's been Dan Andrews has consistently blamed the people of Victoria for this virus spreading, where it's been bungle after bungle of government that has made it worse.
And you have to trust these people when they're not consistent, and when they lie, or when they say either they're liars or they're completely incompetent. Okay, and I don't know which one it is, but they'll say something like, masks don't work, don't waste the mask. And then they'll say, you're going to wear a mask. It's like, well, I can't trust you anymore. I can't believe you. I've got no confidence in you because you're trying to do what's right and what's going to be beneficial to my health, but you don't even know. You keep contradicting yourself. So if you contradict yourself, I'm going to make the decisions myself. That proves that they're incompetent. Yeah, anyway.
Like when Daniel Andrews said, please use your common sense, my immediate response, well, I'll be the judge of that, thank you.
Well, yeah, and all right, so So common sense, right? So, you're using some discretion. I get that. That makes sense. Except, you're not allowed to go to work. You're not allowed to go to church. Even if you're healthy, you're not allowed, because you may be asymptomatic. You may be a carrier. It's the devil that never goes away. It's the enemy that's got to be always there. If we allow them to get away with this kind of a precedent, then where's the end going to be? It'll be another virus next month, something else.
Because there will be. This isn't going to be the final virus, the boss virus, to use a gaming terminology.
Well, and it's amazing how well they've been able to just bit by bit. I never knew that they would have. I never would have fathomed they would have had the capacity to have taken so much away so quick. But the beautiful thing about it is they're making some big mistakes. The media narrative's being questioned now. They've been proven to be liars. They've been inconsistent, and obviously it's coming from the UN. That's why the world's, they're in lockstep together. So what happens is, as it goes down the food chain from the nations to the states, it's like Chinese whispers. Things get missed, or mistakes are made, and we're seeing those mistakes, and people are looking at it, and people are going. People that were a month ago saying, yeah, look, Dan Andrews is doing his best. Many of those people now are saying, we're going to get rid of this guy. We need to go, right?
I've witnessed that as well, but there still are the most devotest of the real cult, which is the cult of Dan, who constantly tweet, I stand with Dan, and thank him on his Facebook page, and saying, oh, it's great to see that all the highways and freeways, no one's there after 8 p.m. And I noticed one tweet was, he's trying to keep you alive. But the way things are, the effect on people's mental health through the effect on their businesses, jobs, and relationships, you're more likely to die at the moment just from the mental anguish.
Well, I don't know if I'll keep my business in the future. I'm on the cusp of going whether I just do something new now and focus on other things that I don't. Because I don't know if there's going to be a future for it. I know other people that they're in the same boat, and this is going to and families will be being damaged. We know this. We already know that. And I guess we don't need to go over it. But the jurisdiction comes from us accepting it and following it. We all have the power to say, I'm not going to do this anymore. Wrong, and follow what your conscience says. So when the law says something that's like I don't disagree with you when they create these powers and say it's not law. But what it's law. It's a man-made law, right? It's not from the creator. But when that higher law is broken, in my opinion, that makes their law inconsistent and invalid. It's kind of like in the Constitution, it says when the law of the state is inconsistent with the law of the Commonwealth, okay, the latter shall prevail. Okay, the Commonwealth law will prevail if it's inconsistent with. Well, I think if the law of the Creator is inconsistent with these state directions or directives, then I'm not going to regard them. And you know what? Give me all the fines you want. At least I'm going to stay in honour and do what's right according to my conscience. And I wish more people would do that, and I hope that they do and start to follow their conscience, because there's power in that, and it has an influence, and it actually inspires other people to do the same thing.
We should also make the point that, because you mentioned the federal state powers, all of this second stage 3 lockdown and now stage 4 lockdown, it's all had the blessing of the Commonwealth government, Prime Minister Scott Morrison, and the Federal Health Minister Greg Hunt, who himself is a Victorian. In fact, they initially lobbied for the 10 postcode lockdown, and they also backed the literal house arrest of those in the public housing towers. The Deputy Chief Medical Officer of the Commonwealth, Paul Kelly, referred to them as vertical cruise ships. So yes, Dan Andrews is the one enforcing it in Victoria through Victoria Police, or as they're now called, authorised officers, and he's enacting the state of disaster powers, but in the background, it does have the blessing of Scott Morrison and his government that, yeah, this is what needs to be done.
Have you ever been in those apartment towers? Been in any of those apartments?
No, I haven't.
My auntie and cousins grew up in those ones. I grew up in another building, and my other auntie lived in another. So I know exactly what they're like. You don't want to stay in those houses, those flats. They're tiny. It's not, that's a horrible thing to do to people. That's completely, there's no question. And how could you get police actually going along with it?
Yeah, that's what I call level 5 lockdown, the literal Wuhan house arrest, as everyone knows, they welded houses shut.
Yeah, they put you in prison, and there's no way to I don't think they're going to be able to lock down the whole of the the whole of the state or the whole of the country. Well, I don't think, because go on.
Yeah, if you consider you're only allowed an hour of exercise per day now. How are they going to know if somebody's done 65 minutes of exercise, for example? And this is the thing about how the state of disaster suspends some human rights, is that prisoners in Barwon prison are allowed 90 minutes of exercise per day, but residents of Melbourne only allowed 60 minutes.
Yeah, I have actually heard you say that before, and it resonated with me. It's so obviously clear. So you have a mind to think, right? And obviously, these directives are for those that don't have the capacity to think anymore. And I think when anyone that's willing to continue to go along with this, I don't know if I have any hope for those people. And I know I should, but I don't know if I do, because I think that we've been given full disclosure of what this government is. It's a government that has no regard for life. We know that they're colluding with the media. We know that they're lying about things. We know they're inconsistent in what they say. And yet people are still thinking that it's okay to destroy people's businesses and their churches and their congregations and possibly their families and the economy forever, when there is no, it's use of force. Use of force is not meant to be disproportionate. It's disproportionate use of force. It's something that's, the death's very low. They've destroyed so much. It's like the agenda. If you thought about the agenda, is maximum damage on the economy, to destroy the economy. There couldn't be a better way of doing that. Maybe dropping a nuclear bomb.
Maybe that's stage 6.
Maybe that's because we're seeing that. It looks like that's playing out over in Beirut.
Yeah, it happened more than 10 hours ago. We still don't know what the cause was.
Yeah. So, and that's, and I mean, I definitely don't want to end up in that situation where that's happening, because that's the reality. It is happening, but definitely we're not being given full disclosure. I don't think there's any logic to what they're doing, and so there's no reasoning for it. I can't even bow down to the conversations now to be able to engage in a conversation with people about it if they still believe that they're doing the right thing, and we've got to stop the COVID spread. I'm like, if you still think that, then there's no point in me having a conversation with you, because you want to believe a lie. The evidence is there. Got no interest in actually looking at what truth is and discussing it.
You have to leave it up to them to figure it out for themselves, because the Victorian people, I've noticed, and also the Australian people at large, they're still extremely passive about accepting that these lockdowns are the only way out of this pandemic, and they are swallowing the Andrews government line that the community transmission of the virus is due to rule breakers. But other states and territory had lockdown lawbreakers, yet there wasn't this level of a community transmission. And well, we were once called the world's most livable city. Now we're one of the world's most unlivable cities. We're in the international headlines for the long reasons. And I did know, given the culture of inner Melbourne and the fact that Dan Andrews won a landslide re-election in 2018, that we were on the path to being the next California, New York, or Melbourne, the next Portland or Seattle. But when it hits you that that's what Melbourne's become, it's like, wow, like, you're not seeing it like it's on TV anymore. It's actually happening in your city. I can't imagine what it would be like to be, like, we're not as bad as Portland and Seattle at the moment, but you can, like, you're getting a sense of it.
Yeah, and I really hope that people don't get down about it and they keep their spirits up, because there's still a lot of us. There's still a lot of people that are. And because this government's so out of control, he's a maniac. Then we're going to get some more to the ranks. And I think the critical mass is building, and there's different people that have their followings and their groups, and they're all sort of coming together, because you know what, you don't have to agree with everything. We don't agree on a lot of things. There's nothing wrong with that. Because
I've disagreed with you tonight. On several matters.
Yeah, and you know what? Because I know that I'm not right about everything. I'm wrong about a lot of things, and I listen to people. That's the best way to be able to learn. Humility is so important, to be able to learn. But like, if all these people are coming together, and because we used to be all the groups were divided, and very much divided. Now they're coming together, and it's quite organically happening, where people are. It's man to man, man to woman, woman to woman. That's what's bringing it together through just conversations. It's not like some ordered script, it's not regimented. And there's some power in that, because the connections are much deeper. It's not that one thing connecting people. It's all these different people together, all becoming interwoven. And that's the critical mass that's quite strong. And we all agree that this dictator has to go, that they're lying to us, and that needs to be exposed, and we need to get our rights back one way or another.
If I can throw in another Simpsons reference, or Simpsons already did it reference, I'm not sure if you're a fan of the show, but there's the Camp Krusty episode. I feel like we're in Camp Krusty at the moment, where Dan Andrews is Mr. Black. I'm not sure if you've seen that episode.
I do remember that.
Yes, and what is that? Jimbo, Dolph, and Kearney, they're the camp counselors.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And they just go and just cause mayhem on these other kids, but they're given the authority. It's like they're the worst people, and they're given all the authority.
And they're fed not even gruel, but imitation gruel. With the abattoirs apparently reduced to 2/3 capacity now. We'll see how that'll affect the meat supply, but that's obviously a reduction in our dietary choices.
Yeah, that's going to upset a lot of people too. It's like they're attacking everything. Everyone's got something that they're going to, you attack people's food. Well, they've already shut down all those restaurants, and a lot of them won't open back up. So that you've got them now. They're attacking all these other businesses. So they're going to be, so we're going to get the numbers, and they're going to start joining our different groups. And I reckon you're going to get a lot more. You've got a pretty good following, but it's only going to go up because people are looking for this kind of information. They want to see the truth from real people, and they want to see true news, genuine news.
Well, the Unshackled, since we started, we covered the activism of the Australian Patriot Movement, which was around from 2015 with Reclaim Australia, then United Patriots Front, and the government and the media thought that they'd crushed it at the beginning of this year because they banned all the groups from Facebook and YouTube and that. And I messaged Blair Cottrell yesterday to say, it looks like you're no longer public enemy number one of the state of Victoria. How do you feel about that? It might be you or Fanos or Raphael. And his reply was, well, you're still allowed on Facebook and YouTube at this stage.
At this stage, yeah. Now I've spoken to Blair a couple of times. He's got a few friends that I have as well. You know, and obviously, you know, he's got a very different way of doing things than I do. But I support the guys. You know, all the guys that are fighting against the actual enemy. You know, I'm not going to fight with them. You know, yep. You know, you try to work. We all work together. It's good that you guys. How much has your audience grown?
It's continued to grow organically, though we, because of, well, our coverage of the Patriot movement in the past, we're severely shadow banned on Facebook. YouTube plays tricks on us all the time because social media censorship is just, it's continued to ratchet it up this year. One of my colleagues, Richard Wollstonecroft, who hosts the report from Tiger Mountain, his recent report, which repeated the very still true possibility that the coronavirus escaped from a bioweapons facility in Wuhan, that got a false information sticker on it from Facebook.
Fact checkers.
Which is... It's clear that it's targeted at his politics because they don't say that it's not true, but there's not enough evidence. That's the thing. They say there's not enough evidence. There's evidence to suggest it, but in their view, there's not enough evidence for them to permit him to say it freely without sticking a warning label on it.
Yeah, well, our Vimeo channel was shut down. Solutions Empowerment's Vimeo channel was also shut down. For sharing the video with the doctors and the congressmen in the US talking about that
hydroxychloroquine, which is banned as a poison in Victoria. Have you seen that notice?
Yeah. So you know, it was actually, I noticed that I knew my friend's Solutions Empowerment, his Vimeo channel was shut down for that. But then I saw that mine was shut down. It was actually when I loaded up that article on my website as a rebuttal to the article that came out from news.com. And I finished that about 3 a.m. And then I had to spend another 3 hours, you know, downloading all those videos from Vimeo, getting the links sent to me so that I could then put them somewhere else and load them back up on the website. So it's very hard to kind of do any sort of activism because you're kicking against the pricks. What they do is everything is against you because it's there. They create the platforms for the most part, and they and the technology is controlled and manipulated by them. So you know, I was up till about 6 a.m. that morning. You know, I spent you know a couple of hours on Zoom trying to teach people. Then I see an article comes out, so then we do a rebuttal article. So that was till 3 o'clock in the morning, and then there's my channel's been taken down. So my website, all the videos are gone. So then I've got to then load all of those back up. And this is the sort of treatment that we get. It's obvious that the censorship's huge, but that all those people that saw that and saw the censorship, I think, you know, they've at least the seeds planted in them that something is wrong when the government and these big corporations partner up and they censor such important information.
There was 2 press conferences from America's frontline doctors about hydroxychloroquine, and despite what some people initially claimed, they were all qualified, licensed doctors. If they had any history of negligence or malpractice, they would have had their licenses taken off them, and they've especially gone after that Nigerian-educated doctor. Dr. Stella Emmanuel. I'm not sure if you've seen that meme about listen to the medical experts. No, not that one. Elevate black voices. No, not hers.
Wow, I haven't seen that one. Well, that's shocking, isn't it?
And they've gone after her religious views because she believes in demons and alien DNA, which, yeah, you might think is kooky, but it doesn't mean she's not a competent doctor. I mean, there'd be people who'd think that you're kooky for believing in a man in the sky and believing that a work of fiction is the word of that man in the sky.
Well, like I believe what I believe, and it's my belief, and we have our own reasons for our belief. And you know what? And I know people that have very different beliefs, but I listen to them. I listen to people. I think you learn a lot. People that think differently have a lot to. And I think the problem is we're under the spell of groupthink, where it's like you're not normal. So there's this group that's apparently normal. You're not normal if you think any different to the way everybody else that's indoctrinated by mainstream media thinks. Whereas actually a lot of the strangest, oddest people, you speak to them, you actually learn a lot from them. You find out that there's a lot of beautiful things about them that you won't recognize if you judge them straight away. But if you don't judge them and you look at them, because I'm of the belief that God makes us who we are, and he makes us who we are for a reason. And he gives us different abilities. So, and it's an easy way to attack people, because I think that most people generally they're under that spell of that's a bit odd, and that's not normal. Whereas it takes a while to sort of come out of that groupthink ideology of what normal is. I mean, who defines what normal is? Who defines it?
Yeah, I'm openly an atheist. I don't believe it's possible in my mind that there's a God, but I have discussions with Christian friends of mine about my beliefs and their beliefs. They're discussions that make you think, both make them think and make me think as well, which is healthy.
I think it is, but then, you're not allowed to think about certain things now and express those, because if you do, it might be offensive. This is what's happened. You see how it's just gradually, bit by bit, they've molded the way that we communicate, and like things that I would have said, years ago. I have this thing comes over me where I think, oh, can I say that? And I have to push past that. And it's because we've been indoctrinated. No, obviously, I don't watch the media, mainstream media at all.
Do you have a proper TV in your house?
I haven't had a proper TV for about 4 or 5 years, maybe 5 years. But remember, I spent my whole life watching TV. So its effects they're still in my mind. I'm still overcome somewhat. I haven't been completely freed from it.
I sort of, with all the fake news spewing out of, well, I'd say terrestrial television and satellite television, it's now the idiot box more than ever now. And with the so-called smartphones, where you can get all the news alerts and that, they're becoming more stupid phones because they're just feeding you a narrative.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even get a narrative, because all I do is get messages from people now and phone calls. So I don't get any time to even do that. But, we need to be reading books again, getting some good books. There's something special about reading a book, because you have to create the images in your brain. You look at those words, you have to formulate it, and it expands your mind. If you're just being shown the image, you don't have to train your brain. It's just like you're instead of doing hard strenuous labor, you just sit in some machine, the machine's doing it all for you, and you just waste away. That's what's happening to people's brains, because they're not thinking anymore, and we're not reading a lot, and we're definitely not reading a lot that's thought provoking, and now we're not even having many of those discussions, because we're not able to have those discussions with people.
We should take solace, though, that we do still have our free speech for now. And I do agree that with Thanos's view that now is not the time for rallies, because you're just going to be blamed by the people you're trying to convince that you're spreading the virus. So now is the time for education. And depending on how the curve plays out, I mean, the curve went up again today, people are going to think more about why things are not working. But certainly the cult of Dan, they would love all of us charged with sedition and have us arrested for being threats to public safety. I've seen that on Twitter, which just shows you may think the people who are in power are bad, but some of their supporters, they are even worse.
Yeah, and it all goes back to that Milgram experiment. I don't know if you're familiar with the Milgram experiment.
I explain it for our audience.
Basically, there's different versions of the experiment, but essentially it's if there's somebody in authority, the conclusion is that there's somebody in authority, and there's somebody that's in their power, or they believe in their power, they will follow the directives of the one in authority to the point of killing somebody. And it's well over half of the people that have gone through these different types of experiments will basically, if someone's in authority telling them to do something, they will do it to the point of killing somebody. Whereas, the smaller percentage will stop somewhere before the man or woman's dead, and they'll say, "Look, I can't do this." Their conscience will kick in. So the authority figure is basically that's the device that switches off the conscience for a lot of people, so that they're not operating in their conscience anymore. But then equally, when somebody stands up to authority and shows that the authority is wrong, immoral, and evil, and stands up, that inspires people as well. It works in reverse when somebody does that. So that I guess we've got to be doing more of that, and standing up to them in the face of adversity and all the rest of it, and doing what's right, and that people I think will be inspired by that.
Tuesday's press conference was the first time we saw Police Commissioner Shane Patton for a while. The less we see him at the press conferences, the better. He was asked by a journalist about, are you going to take down anti-lockdown Facebook posts? And he said that no, they haven't asked Facebook to take down any posts. They would only take action if there's an incitement to unlawful activity, which is pretty standard for law enforcement and Facebook policy. But it was also interesting, he said that he's also not concerned about what happens, that fines are issued if they're contested or whatever. They just want to get the fines out there as sort of the deterrence. Like Victoria Police, sometimes they have one of the commissioners announcing the fines, otherwise that's through a statement, but it's always like, we've issued these fines for these reasons. It was interesting, he was on 7:30 with Lee Sales last night, who's in self-isolation because she's got a cold and got a coronavirus test. He said that curfew is making it easier to catch real criminals who, obviously, if they're criminals, then they're not going to obey a curfew. And sort of the people who say that, like, for example, the person who went to Wodonga for a Big Mac, or the person who was out at 4 a.m. To go to a bottle shop, you sort of think maybe they were out for some other reason.
Yeah, I did hear that about the actually. What's interesting about what you said with the fines, he's the new police commissioner too.
Yes,
well,
he's basically been running the show since Graham Ashton was on sick leave so much during his time as police commissioner.
Yeah, but it shows that that's just a mechanism. It's just a mechanism to control people. These fines. You know, I mean, I did get a fine, and I just opted to go to court, and I haven't heard back from them. You know, and I would like to go to court over it, because I think that we can set a precedent.
Well, the courts are like they're shut down at the moment. There's going to be such a backlog of not just these fines, but all other criminal matters as well, because there are still ordinary crims committing crimes.
Of course there are. They're not going to stop doing crimes, and now they can wear masks everywhere. So
but with the curfew, that means that there should be no African gang home invasions now, because they'll be breaking curfew.
Yeah. Well, so you got to see, look at the positives there, right? Funny it was like that.
Because I know that Cranbourne has been a African youth gang crime hotspot, not as bad as over in the west, but you've had some trouble.
Yeah, it's been pretty bad over here. But yeah, I mean, what do we do? What are your suggestions? What do you think needs to happen? I'm going to interview you for a bit. What do you think needs to happen, Tim?
Needs to happen.
What do you think? What do you think the government? What do you think needs to happen to basically get our government to acknowledge fault, or to stand down or to break the restrictions, or to change?
Well, we're seeing them double down on their Daniel Andrews not taking responsibility for their own stuff ups, continuing to threaten, hector, nanny us at every turn. So what I said before, because we now know that the initial stage 3 lockdown back in April and May didn't work. Well, I don't think we even did have a first wave because we had very low levels of community transmission, and it was basically shutting the international borders that basically eliminated the virus in most of Australia. So we actually haven't had a first wave like Europe, North America, Latin America did. And so Victoria is seeing a legitimate first wave given the massive amounts of community transmission that we're seeing. And so you can easily be more infected with the virus now. I actually know people now who've been infected with the virus and are feeling like feeling a load of crap at they feeling like crap, but they'll recover because most of them
they're going to recover, aren't
they? Because they're young. We're seeing the rest of the world experiencing a second wave. The UK, they opened up, but they're beginning to shut down again. And it's Europe and North American summer there. So you can imagine how bad it's going to be during their winter, which is around Christmas time. I mean, the silver lining in this, through government incompetence, we could actually reach in Victoria herd immunity. And so we could get the bad medicine, which is the lockdowns, over with quickly. And it could, because you could... Western Australia, South Australia, New Zealand, which have eliminated the virus, elimination only works if you stay closed forever, which is almost impossible. So the virus is, as with all the pandemics that we've had, the virus never goes away. There's just herd immunity.
That was very, very well said. I think you so. The problem, I guess the problem is that's logical, but I don't think, when you've got Dictator Dan in there and his cronies, they're not going to let that happen. They're not going to, because they've got power. They never get rid of the power. They love the power. They hang on to it as long as they can.
We are, and this is the point that I make, we are virtually a police state on the ground on paper, but as Dan Andrews has conceded, they can't even enforce the people who have tested positive isolating. Because what was it, the last information we got? 800 of the 3,000 that were door knocked were not at home. And given the positive cases keep going up and up, that's more people they have to repeatedly door knock multiple times to check that they're at home, even though they are getting more ADF down. This is the thing. They're just having to keep up with the people who've already tested positive.
Yeah, I'm just interested to see how far he's going to go, because he's gone, in my opinion, he's gone so far beyond what I ever would have thought that we were capable of, and the people have accepted it as a majority. I think the majority have accepted it.
They have still the overwhelming majority are accepting it, but the the people who have basically, like, there are people who flip to basically thinking, yeah, Dan has our best interest at heart, to basically saying dictator Dan.
Yeah, and that's where my hope is, mate. My hope is that we get more of them. You know, when they start to do things wrong, and then you kind of like, I actually kind of want him to keep going.
Yeah, it's basically, because it's been, for a political follower like myself, Dan Andrews has had so many scandals, stuff ups, wasted so much money, but he's been able to get away with it to this point because there's not much scrutiny. But this has basically exposed his house of cards on a massive scale. So it's basically a form of accelerationism that this virus has brought his government to his knees, to the point now, well, we don't even know if we have a chief health officer at the moment. Brett Sutton is apparently on leave. I don't know what chief health officer takes leave during a pandemic, but you know, that's the state of things.
Was it the chief health officer that was getting? Who was it that was getting questioned regarding their application of? They were getting questioned. I think it was Gordon Rich Phillips, maybe that was. Speaking.
He's one of the Liberal shadow ministers. Yes.
Yeah, it was asking. I can't remember who they were asking, but basically they were refusing to be accountable and answer.
Yeah, that was Jenny McCarkos yesterday, her parliamentary performance, where she just didn't answer.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, so if you can't make your government accountable, then they're invalid. They've got to be accountability. They're meant to. If they made the claim that they represent the people, so they have to be accountable to the people. And when they refuse to be accountable, I think he was saying that that's contempt. You know, they were in contempt of the parliament. You know? So that's probably one avenue that we should pursue. And people should be, you know.
You can still email your local MP to tell them what you think in a civil manner, because they can. I know from inside knowledge that they can filter it, but the emails they're going to be delivered, or the mail is going to be, like, the Australia Post mail is still going as well. And they do have an effect. Like, you can still call up your local MP. There's still a lot of recourse that the people have.
Yeah, and I wonder if a lot of us aren't doing that. You know, we probably do need to do more of that and get people, you know, really hammering the local members. You know, I think a lot of people that I know they don't like politicians at all. They think that they're all a pack of liars. That's in my community, you know, and my family. But you know, I mean, I guess we should be giving them the benefit of the doubt and saying, all right, well, this is what we think. You know, and if we all hammer them, we might have to see a little bit of a result. I don't know. You know? Anyway. Yeah.
Another silver lining is that even Wuhan residents were released from their house arrest, which if the residents of Wuhan are, you know, free as you can be in a communist nation, then there's hope for Melburnians.
Well, have you ever seen the Constitution of China, the Chinese Constitution? It's actually very similar to ours. It's very similar to the US.
Oh yeah, the Soviet Constitution was the gold standard in Orwellian newspeak.
Yep, that's what it is. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I don't know how the curve is going to go in the next next 6 weeks. Because we're just seeing community transmission and active cases continue to grow. They'll either go down because there'll be some sort of herd immunity, or just keeping people apart for so long. And then there's also the third possibility that they'll admit that they were wrong, which is I'd say the least likely of those 3 scenarios.
Yep. It'd be nice though, wouldn't it? You know, I don't see that happening. I don't see much honesty in the current government. They've lied in the past. They've got, you know, all these scandals. that they're trying to cover up. They're not accountable when we ask them to be accountable. I've sent notices in and letters to the Commissioner of Taxation, to the Ombudsman Taxation, and I've had, I haven't received anything from them. They've never responded to my to my questions, to legitimate questions. So I know that they're not accountable. So I can only assume that the rest of the government would probably be similar. But I don't know. They might. I don't know how controlled it is. I don't know how much of a club it is. I was in the Liberal Party for a little over 4 years, and there are factional groups in there that have their own sort of agendas. But I think that we still have the numbers, and they don't. And I think if they keep pushing really, really hard and become more and more totalitarian, they're going to lose more and more police officers. I think they're going to probably.
Well, they might have lost a chief health officer. We don't know. That's in limbo.
Yeah, and then they'll probably need to then, if they continue with it, deputise. Who knows? Lower the standards. Well, we've seen the standards lower.
Yeah. Well, when they moved sideways, Dr. Annelies van Diemen Friday night, they brought in 3 deputy chief health officers. So yeah, it's definitely not a good look for them to be moving people around. And let's not forget the Andrews government's own corruption scandal, where they lost 3 ministers recently in between the free window, shall we call it, of this pandemic.
So if they that's where education comes in. Education is, I think, the most important tool, is to teach people. That's why people can speak to police and in a dignified way, and not just belittle them and abuse them, not smash their heads into the ground in the concrete, because they're like apparently what happened in Frankston.
That was horrible. Where the police just asked this 38-year-old woman why she wasn't wearing a mask, and just did that. But she was referred to as an anti-masker, so implied that she was a member of your cult.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I know her. Maybe she is. Maybe she comes to our secret lair meetings. I don't know. No, look. I think they've got to try to get the people to go along with this agenda. They've put a plan forward. This is what they want to do, and this is how they want to do it, and they want to do it in this way. But the way that they've planned and the way they've gone about it is just causing destruction everywhere. I think it's like they've basically gone the route of maximum destruction. And I don't think Daniel Andrews is incredibly stupid. I don't think he's that stupid to actually do that. Although I didn't think the police would be that stupid to turn up to my gym with 15 police cars when I wasn't there either, and they did. So I don't know.
I still hang on to my libertarian principles that governments and their agencies, they're more incompetent and stupid than conspiratorial and totalitarian.
Yeah, and you're probably right. But I mean, what I mean is that they definitely have an agenda. The agenda, whether it's conspiratorial or not, they've got an agenda. We've got to get this done. This is our plan. This is how we're going to implement it, right?
But it's just like they think it's going to work, though, because the first lockdown was that let's just lock everything down, fingers crossed, it'll work. That's basically what it was.
And that shows the pride, because they're not admitting that, oh, you know what, we stuffed up. I haven't heard Daniel. Have you heard Daniel Andrews, apologise for anything?
No.
I mean, no. So there's no apology. So that's just pride. It's like they know they're wrong, but they're still going to continue to go along with it to make it right somehow. And it's only going to get worse. It's only going to hurt more people and make more people angry. And then people are, some of them are getting to the point of, possibly having those violent feelings and that towards say other police, because I speak to lots of people and I always counsel them not to be like that, just don't let it get to you. But they've hit their limit already, and they're angry and I just hate the police. I'm just saying, it's like, we don't hate them.
Yeah, which is which is why, going back to what we talked about before, just talking to like-minded people, it makes those sort of either angry thoughts or sad thoughts, it helps them go away. I certainly wouldn't call up the government mental health line. I'd call up one of my friends to make me feel better about what's going on.
Yeah, and I guess, like the point I'm trying to put forward is that this is what they're creating with their actions against the people, because they're making claims that aren't valid, and they're not accepting the liability for their actions. And that's the key part, liability. So who's liable for those restaurants and businesses that have closed down or whatever?
Yeah. The government's never accountable for all the incompetence that they do. It's only ordinary citizens and businesses.
Yeah. But then if you don't go along with what they their directives, they'll turn up to your gym with 15 police cars and try to and park at the front of your gym to scare off all your business, your patrons, and do things like that. So there is an element of like a nasty element to it, because and then park at the front of your gym with their lights going for 40 minutes. So that's just nasty. That's just and that's where it's like, well, hang on, what's the agenda? Is it to help people? If it's to help people, I've said to the police before, I said, look, I'll close the business down when you provide the evidence that it's valid, and this is the evidence that I need. Otherwise, and they won't do that. They'll destroy my. I even had the council harass me about my gym. They said, well, you need to get a permit. I don't need to get a permit.
Well, you're in the city of Casey, aren't you?
Yeah,
you have no elected representatives at the moment. The council was sacked by, ironically, Adam Somniak back in February. I interviewed the former CFKC councillor Rosalie Krishani on the eve of the second stage 3 lockdown, and she is devastated she can't represent her community anymore.
Yeah, and it's sad because it's basically they've been doing dodgy deals and collecting money from these big developers and being bribed and embezzling money, and that's what they've been doing. And then so that was my thing when they rang me. I said, well, hang on, I don't trust you guys. When you guys, wasn't Casey Council involved in embezzling all of that money? And I just sort of put it to them, and they said, oh no, but you need a permit. I said, well, what permit do I need? I'm looking on your website, and there's no permit for what I do. I'm not operating on council land, the public land. I'm in private property. And then they said, so then I went, oh, okay. And then they rang me up again. This is after I've had these interactions with police. They rang me up again. Said, oh, look, we need to, and I've spoken to the council once in 10 years. And then I get 2 phone calls after I had the incident with the police, right? And they're both very invasive conversations where they're asking. The second time they rang and they said, well, you just want to come in and do a building inspection on your building. I said, how's no sound? And I said, and he said to me, oh, well, why? I said, well, because I think that you're up to no good and you're trying to create a controversy against me. Don't pretend you're not. I just spoke to him like that. And he said, no, it's honourable. And, I said, well, you know what? Not interested. But that's the sort of thing that they. Oh, you want the salt? Okay, I don't know where it is. Okay, all right. You go get it. Mum will get it for you.
That might be a good good cue to start wrapping things up. But that's
the sort of stuff that's happening like at the lower level. So the government does something here, and then the police and the other agents under here start to do things, and as it goes down, it becomes into a bit of a mess, and then it's almost like there's vendettas if you don't go along with what they say, because they've got this supposed authority, and if you challenge it, you're like this bad. And it's not even about what's right or wrong now. It's about no, we've got to win. It's like, well, hang on, let's be moral about it. What's right and wrong? And that's been my issue from the beginning. I know it's wrong what they're doing, because we never gave the government power to destroy everyone's businesses, possibly families, and to cause this kind of destruction, but they're doing it anyway. They're appointing themselves and giving themselves that kind of power, and then they're deputizing all these people underneath them. And so, but anyway, look, one thing I do want to say is hopefully the people will stand up when it's time to stand up, and not aggressively, stand against it. And just say, I'm not doing this anymore, and it's wrong.
Well, there's been a lot of talk about the vaccine. The only way out of this pandemic is with a vaccine, but there's never been a vaccine developed for a strand of coronavirus, and all the hopes of one, and this is putting your views on vaccines to one side, have not amounted to anything.
So it's almost like we've been pushed into that narrative, that this is your way out. We're going to cause harm to you. We're going to destroy everything unless you do this. It's their way of getting you to sign a contract with them. It's almost like siege tactics from ancient Rome, and it's actually very Roman, because the Romans always used bribery. The Roman bribery, they'll give people benefits for things if they do go along with Rome's jurisdiction, and they penalise those that don't.
Well, we still haven't in Victoria seen mandatory coronavirus testing of all citizens. I don't know whether they've got the capacity to do that, but I think, judging by what Jenny Mikakos has said in the past, that even though they've suspended some of our human rights, that they still, well, I'd have to check what rights they've suspended, but they haven't spoken about that yet. So they haven't gone that far in that regard to medical treatment, and this is so it doesn't they haven't indicated, there's no official indication that we'll be forced to take a vaccine, but I know better by now to sort of say, I don't think they'll do that, because
it just changes day to day. Whatever they say, they could completely do a backflip, because they've done it already. They've shown us that they'll do that.
Yeah. Well, Dan's press conference tomorrow. Hopefully now he'll be in the hot seat, asked about why isn't Dr. Brett Sutton by your side? Where is he? He'll be finally under the heat. We'll have less time to lecture and hector us.
Yep, we can only hope, mate. Only hope.
Well, I'll end you with this farewell, which is please stay safe. I wish you well. Thanks again for joining me. And yeah, predicting the future is now Mug's game. We can just take it, almost one half day at a time now.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me on and getting the message out, and just showing that the media narrative is completely false. They say one thing, but it's not true. And being a platform for us, it's a beautiful thing. I appreciate it, and we'll keep fighting the good fight, brother. Yeah.
Do not watch, this is a recommendation to all of you, do not watch any mainstream media anymore for your own health. Do not watch it. You don't have to watch me, but just don't watch the mainstream media. Yeah. And you can check out Nick's blog at john8.net. Take care. Well, there was some feel-good news of today. That was that Melbourne University announced that they were slashing 450 jobs as part of the coronavirus shutdown, since it slashed its revenue by 1 million. Given that it's academics who've been leading the lockdown cheer-ons, it's another case of you get what you deserve. And you wonder whether that will cause some of those in academia to rethink what they've been cheering on. And of course, Nick referred to during the show, the other big international story of the day was the explosion in Beirut, Lebanon. We don't know what the cause was, whether it was a chemical explosion, whether it was terrorism. So far, over 100 people have been confirmed dead, and there are 4,000 who are injured. We'll bring you, obviously, more when we know more. There'll be no Trad Tasman talk this Friday because Douay is in full New Zealand election campaign mode since he is a candidate for the new Conservative Party. So instead, it will be a Friday edition of WilmsFront. I'll have a show focusing on the civil unrest in the United States in the lead up to the November presidential election. My guest will be Justin Nolan, who here's a sign at a Black Lives Matter rally which said racism doesn't exist, went viral online. He's got some strong views about the state of the United States. He's from Cincinnati, Ohio, so he'll be joining me 7 p.m. Friday Melbourne time, which will be 5 a.m. Cincinnati time. He's getting up very early for me, which I very much appreciate it. Tomorrow night, of course, the Uncuckables, 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time on the show YouTube and DLive channel. It'll be myself, David Hiscock from XYZ, and also Logan Spalding from What's He On About Now. He'll be returning to the show. Another all Melbourne affair because, well, we are one of the #1 stories in the world right now. I saw that Katie Hopkins, who I was lucky enough to interview recently on WilmsFront, on her Parler account, she's bringing attention to all her followers from around the world, what's happening here in Melbourne, Australia, and I'm certainly grateful to Katie for making sure that what's happening to us is known around the world, and that if it can happen to us, it can happen to any city or jurisdiction. Because, yeah, as I said, it doesn't look like this virus is going away. We've got to learn to live with it and best protect the vulnerable and the elderly as best we can. I'll see you all tomorrow. Please, everyone, stay safe and stay well, and focus. Try to remain as happy as you can be. See a bit of humor. Just continue living as much as you can, even though we are under house arrest. Enjoy, read a book, or watch a non-Hollywood movie. Talk with friends over the phone or Zoom. There's a lot you can still do to bring a smile to your face. And that's the end of the show for tonight. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to WilmsFront. Visit timwilms.com or Rational Rise TV to view the archive of episodes. And keep visiting theunshackled.net to view all our shows. And to keep up with the latest real news and analysis.